So before we get started with the video, I just wanted to come on here and say, first of all, welcome to the channel. Welcome to my very first official YouTube video. I am super stoked to get this journey started with you guys and just to see where this channel ends up going. The other thing I wanted to kind of just address a little bit is while I was editing the video, I didn't really explain why I was wearing red tinted sunglasses in the middle of a video that I was filming at, 11 o'clock at night and indoors. So I just kind of wanted to take a second to explain that a little bit. So basically, I've been a fan of superheroes and comic books and stuff like that my entire life. So when it comes to movies like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I realize that I tend to have a bit of a bias when it comes to these kind of movies. I tend to favor them more than I critique them in any sort of critical way. And as a reviewer, that's not really going to fly, now is it? So in order to keep my bias in check, I'm going to be doing 2 different reviews for each comic book related movie. The full review, which is what I'm going to be calling the rose colored glasses review, which is where that's right after I see the movie and just kind of what I'm feeling right then and there. And then a follow-up review a week later, or about a week later. It depends on the week. This will give me some time to kind of, maybe see the movie again, see some other reviews of other people, and just kind of see what the community's feeling about these movies before I give my final review. And of course, I'm not going to allow these factors to really persuade my opinions. I just want to see what other people are saying so that way I can check my own bias, see if there's anything that I made a mistake on. Maybe someone explains a certain scene that I didn't really understand. And I know this can happen with other movies, but I tend to ignore these things right away when I see a comic book movie because of how much of a fan I am. So I'm just checking my own bias. I can't really say much for other reviewers or the other fans in the community, but what I can do is I can only check on myself. So, sometimes my opinions may not change by a week. It may stay the exact same, or like in the case of Suicide Squad, it very well may completely reverse at the end of the week. So again, this is just a way for me to check myself and really tell how I feel about these movies. So when you see me doing a review for a comic book based movie and you see me like this, then that means that's my reaction right after the movie. I just came from the movie and I'm still in my anticipation zone where I'm just so excited about the movie. But about a week later, when you see me reviewing the same movie looking like this, then that's the review that I really take off the literal rose colored glasses and I really talk to you guys about how I truly feel about this movie 1 week later, after maybe seeing it again and seeing how the community feels about the movie and judging the movie really based on my own opinion after kind of checking myself and my opinions. Hopefully this will give me enough time to really decompress and give you guys an accurate portrayal of how I feel about certain movies, especially these big movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, Wonder Woman, and definitely Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor, and Justice League. I really hope that this gives you guys an idea of how I want this show to be run and just kind of how I want things to go, And hopefully this explains why I'm wearing sunglasses at night doing a movie review, and I'm not just some crazy person, but I'm a crazy person with a reason. Alright, so with that being said, I say let's just jump right into the review then. Oh, you guys gotta come too, come on. Hey, what's up guys? It's Jules Alexander and welcome to the Backlot Review. Tonight, we're going to be talking about we're just going to be reviewing that, talking about what's good, I'm going to give you what's bad, and we're going to get into some spoilers later on down the road. Don't worry, there will be a warning. You'll know when it's a spoiler section. I promise I won't just blurt out anything about the movie, okay? So in the movie, it kind of picks up with the Guardians kind of working together as a team, and we get all that good stuff. Same kind of thing you would see from like an Avengers movie, but of course in space. And, there's some back and forth between the team, and some things happen where, of course, we end up in trouble, and they get found by Ego, Star-Lord's dad. So let's just start with some of the good. Let's just get into that right now. First of all, each character had an excellent story arc. Okay, you know that's really important with these kind of movies, that you get that from each and every character, especially with so many main characters. That's what I really love about James Gunn, is he can take all these characters and, you know, they all play their own part or whatever, and you get plenty from each of them. You know, the story may focus on Star-Lord, but at the same time, you're getting a lot from Gamora and Drax. I would say Groot probably had the least amount of really much of anything, but what he did have was so impactful it didn't really matter all that much. So, also the relationships with each character, in between each characters, were really excellently made and written, especially with like Peter and Ego, and Rocket with Yondu. I was not expecting that to be a very interesting relationship and a very heartfelt relationship. And Drax and Mantis were a really interesting pair throughout the movie. And one of my favorites was definitely Gamora and Nebula. I was not expecting such an emotional roller coaster coming from those two in this movie. I was expecting some conflict between the two because just of their nature or whatever, being daughters of Thanos. But I was not expecting to actually get any sort of emotional feeling from seeing them together and working against each other, working together at the end, and all that good stuff. And then just the cosmic Marvel Cinematic Universe is really expanded in this movie. You know, we get to see all these different planets and everything. It really reminded me of a Star Wars movie in a way, where it was like, you know, you kind of just go from one planet, you know, something's happening there, and then you go to another planet. I feel like that's not really something we have with the first movie, where it was just kind of like, okay, we're on this planet and then we're here and here and here. That's where we need to be for the story. But it's like here, we really get to see more of what it means to be in these farther realms and the galaxy of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I thought that was really cool. What I really feel like this movie was about, and I really love that it's about this, is that it's about what it means to be blood versus what it means to be family. It's one thing to say that you're blood and that you're connected in that sort of way, but it's another thing to say that you're family, when people that care about you and, you know, they'll do anything for you, they'll die for you, that's family right there. And that's what this movie really talks about. Some of the other things that I really liked about the movie were, first of all, Baby Groot. Baby Groot was probably the most adorable thing I've seen on the big screen in a while. You know, you really think going into this movie, oh man, Baby Groot's probably gonna get really annoying and really old really fast, but you know, from the beginning to the end of the movie, he is really just stealing every scene that he's in, and he is just so damn cute. I cannot stress that enough. Of course he is. Look at him. Just look at that right there. It's like, how can they make a character even more cute? You know, and it's interesting because I'm sure we're gonna see him grow up throughout the other movies or whatever, but you know, I kind of want to see him as Baby Groot again, so that'll be interesting to see in the future. And just something I really thought was just amazing was how creatively they did Ego the Living Planet. You know, when they announced Ego the Living Planet, everybody thought, or at least I thought, that they weren't going to do him justice, or they were just going to make him Kurt Russell as Star-Lord's dad. But they really did creatively find a way to make it so that Kurt Russell plays Ego without playing a giant face on a planet floating around in space talking to the Guardians like that. So now we're going to move on to what I thought could have used a little bit more work in the movie, otherwise known as the bad section.
Subtle, take it back.
What are you doing?
I'm distracting you, you big turd blossom.
So first of all, speaking of Ego, one of the questions I had almost as soon as they got onto Ego, was Kurt Russell mentions that, or as Ego he mentions that he wanted to know what it meant to be human when he created his avatar or whatever. My question is, why would he just automatically go to human? He's in this vast universe of millions he even says billions and trillions and whatever beings, but he wanted to know what it meant to be human. It just kind of seemed weird that's the form that he would choose to base his avatar on, that he creates as Kurt Russell. You know, he created himself like that because he wanted to know what it meant to be human, but again, I just asked why. One thing I really thought was both a plus and a minus of the movie was the humor. First of all, this is definitely the funniest Marvel movie I'm sure you'll see that a lot. I already saw it on like 3 commercials today, you know, saying that it was the funniest Marvel movie ever. And that may be the case, but at the same time, there were certain spots that lose their luster because of the humor. There are moments where James Gunn should have allowed it to kind of breathe or whatever, dramatic moments that really lost their tension after, you know, someone says something. You know, it's either, you know, it's usually a callback to the last movie or a callback from earlier in the movie or something like that. And it's like, okay, well, I kind of wanted to feel something else there, not be laughing at a joke that you made that was from earlier or from another movie. I kind of wish they would have picked the different spots for those moments. There were some really laugh out loud good moments in this movie, but at the same time, it's like I wanted to be able to feel certain moments that I wasn't able to feel because my friends were laughing at something and or laughing at something they weren't supposed to be laughing at. I get that, you know, this movie is what it is, and you know it's supposed to be funny, and it is funny. It's really funny at certain points, but there are some points where, you know, I wish the humor had died down a little bit so that way we can get these other emotional moments. It's not that this film didn't have its emotional moments. It's a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Just like the first one, it's going to have those moments, and it definitely did in spades. But I could have used a little bit more in terms of drama and suspense and whatnot, rather than laughing. Alright, and now to get into some spoilers.
Come on,
He's someone whose bad side I'd rather not be on.
What about my bad side?
Farewell, Mr. Quill.
If you don't want to be spoiled for the movie, if you haven't seen it yet, I suggest you either, you know, click to this time spot here, or just just scoot away for a little bit. You know, just scoot from your computer a little bit. All right. So the big spoiler is that at the end of the movie, Yondu dies, saving Peter Quill. I thought this is the kind of emotional impact I really wanted from this movie, and it definitely delivered. I wouldn't say that there were tears in my eyes, but I mean, come on, we were all feeling a little weepy at watching this scene where Yondu flies into space, and they only have one spacesuit and one rocket pack, and so he's flying into space. He's trying to save Peter, and he just doesn't make it or whatever, and he freezes and dies in space. I thought that was really well done. Again, what I love about James Gunn in these movies so far is that there's just really, you know, I know I talked about the humor kind of taking away from certain emotional impacts, but when the emotional impacts do hit, they hit hard. And I love that so much. It just brings another level to these movies other than just being a Marvel movie. You know, some of these other movies don't really have those moments. And you know, and it kind of falls in that territory of like with, and I guess spoilers for Star Wars Episode 7 if you haven't seen that yet for whatever reason. You know, it kind of felt like with Han Solo, it's like as soon as he stepped on that bridge, you already knew he was gonna die. So it's like the emotional impact is still there. You know, the moment is still there, but it's like you kind of know that Yondu's not gonna make it towards the end. But I mean, still at the same time, it's so powerful. And you know, at the end when the Ravagers all get together and do the Ravager funeral, that was just, oh man, that was just so good. And then Stan Lee's cameo. Oh my god, I was so excited, okay? Because I'm a comic book fan, so it's like, of course I want to see, you know, I'm seeing the movie for the movie. I'm here to enjoy it and be entertained. That's what I got. With Stan Lee's cameo, it was just such a big comic book moment where it was like, you know, he's chatting with the Watchers. You know, the Watchers, I'm sure there's thousands of people that are going to go into this movie not knowing a damn thing about who these big man-baby looking space dudes are that are talking to Stan Lee. They know who Stan Lee is by now because all the comic book fans talk about him in every movie, but they don't know who the Watchers are. But it's like, for a comic book fan, it was so, oh man, it was just one of those moments where you just kind of freak out a little bit in your seat and you're like, oh wow, I can't wait to see if this goes anywhere. I mean, you know, it was just a cameo for Stan Lee or whatever. It may not go anywhere. It's just really cool to see where that's going to go in the future. And speaking of Stan Lee's cameo and the Watchers, let's get into some of the after credits. There are 5 after credits. I believe that's more than any other probably any other, well, definitely any other Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. So there's Kraglin, and he's playing with Yondu's arrow. He's got Yondu's fan or whatever, and he's playing with that. Yeah, that's all good and fun. You know, you got to throw, if you're gonna have 5 after credit scenes, of course you're gonna have to throw that one that's like fun and funny, or a couple that are funny. Then you have one with the original Guardians. I grew up with, you know, only knowing the Guardians as much as the movie characters, so I didn't really understand who most of those guys were. But I thought that was really cool that they showed up, and I'm sure the hardcore Guardians of the Galaxy fans from before the movie are, you know, they were really jittery about that. But I just didn't really understand who most of them were or how they could impact the future of the MCU in any way. But then let's talk about Adam Warlock. That was so cool. I was sitting there, and Aisha was, you know, sitting there, and then they showed the cocoon, and, you know, before she could even utter the words, I was like, Adam, you know, and my friends both looked at me like, did you really just predict what she was gonna say, you know, that sort of thing, because it was like, yeah, Adam Warlock, he's coming, he's coming. We've heard it from James Gunn himself that he's coming. I can't wait to see him. And then there was a scene where Groot is apparently rapidly aging. So this movie takes place in 2014, and so by the time we see Groot again in Infinity War next year, he should be a full-grown man, back like when he was in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And this scene proves that, because it's a scene of him as a teenager in his room. Star-Lord comes in as like a dad and is like, hey, you need to pick up your room, why aren't you cleaning up your room, blah 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 blah. You know, it's giving him the, oh, you know, sassy, like sarcastic, you know. We can't understand what I am Groot means, but you can tell he's saying something totally sarcastic and something a teenager would say, and it's perfect. It's so funny. And I love this, to see the evolution of Groot. And then at the very, very end, we get the Watchers again with Stan Lee, and you know, they're just kind of walking off, and he's like, you guys are supposed to be my ride home, where are you going? And I just, oh man, I cannot believe we got the Watchers, you know. Alright, you guys, so we covered the good, the bad, and the spoilery things about this movie. And I thought it was a pretty darn good movie, pretty solid. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5 Ravager badges, in fact. So what that means is that it was near perfect, just about hit every beat I could think of, but it had that 0.5%, which is the bad section that I covered, that just could have been done a little bit different or a little bit better. But overall, it was just a very solid film, and I cannot wait to see it again. And I can't wait to see you guys again. So let me know what you guys think about this video. It's my first one, so just take it easy on me in the comment section, if there are even any comments, who knows. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and check me out on Instagram and Twitter, and you'll find those links in the description down below. My name is Jules Alexander, and this has been the Backlot Review.